Every week, Matchday nerves. Favourite garms and lucky charms. As a team, side by side in the zone, whistle blown. Adrenaline hits, outrageous assists, record breakers, magic makers. Agony to ecstasy, home and away. Showing up together. Football is people. And everyone's welcome in the Premier League.
Hello and welcome to Matchday Live. Fresh off the back of an exhilarating victory against Arsenal at the Emirates, Pep's side are looking to maintain pressure on the Gunners, who are currently drawing 2-2 with Villa in the lunchtime kickoff. I will keep you updated if that score changes. Now, our opponents today are Nottingham Forest, who return to the Premier League for the first time in 23 years. They are currently on an unbeaten run of 7 league games at home, their longest unbeaten run in the top flight since 1996. Now, City have won their last 9 games against newly promoted teams. 5 of these have been away from home. So we have good omens heading into the game here at the City ground. And this is our first away Premier League game kicking off at 3 p.m. on a Saturday this season. Yes, a 3 p.m. Saturday kickoff. Thank you so much for joining us on today's Matchday Live. I can't believe it's a 3 p.m. Saturday kickoff. It's wonderful, my absolute favourites. And joining me, some wonderful guests today. One of our all-time favourites, of course he is. We have to compliment him now and again so he keeps coming back. It is former Manchester City defender Nedum Onuoha. Always a pleasure. And we have a big debut on the show today. Very, very excited. Former Nottingham Forest midfielder, Republic of Ireland manager, Celtic manager, Sunderland, you name it. This man has done it. Martin O'Neill, welcome.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm wonderful, Martin. We've had a brilliant week. It's been a really good week.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're really thrilled that you're joining us on the show today, of course, for your former team, Forest. Mm-hmm. It must be a pleasure for you to see them back in the Premier League.
It is pleasing, really, after the length of time that they've been out. I think there is always a feeling that because Nottingham Forest won the European Cup a couple of times, that they're in an elite group. Well, they are in that aspect there, but there's no guarantees of ever one, being in the Premier League, and 2, staying in it. So after, I think it was about 23 years or something like that, and a lot of managers, including myself, for 19 games, I must admit, it is good. It's good to see it. They've invested very, very heavily this season in trying to stay up. And at the beginning, I think people thought that a lot of players were being foisted upon the manager. Actually, in many aspects, I don't know whether you agree, but eventually that's not such a bad thing. Yes, you need a little bit of time to get to know the players, but even so, as long as you know that coming end of January time, when the transfer window's over, that you've got a squad capable of dealing with, and I'm talking about numerically speaking, then you should find yourself okay.
Absolutely. Nedum, it has been a great week for City, hasn't it? Yeah. We were together yesterday filming the FPL show, which was. It
was a great show.
It was. I mean, it was a brilliant show.
It was a great show. Yeah.
The guests were particularly excellent on that show, weren't they? The presenter, but the guests.
The guests were great. Yeah.
You're always a very busy man, so it's always a pleasure to see you here.
You present?
No. I present nothing. No, it was not me. No.
We were the guests, Martin. It was the two of us. Yes, it was. We had a lovely time. It was very unpressured. It was nice to be on that side. You can get, of course, the City FPL show now available. So we did. We've had a lovely week. Now, I can bring you the team news for City. Don't forget, Matchday Live is always the first place to get your team news. And here it is. There are 2 changes to the team that beat Arsenal midweek. So it's Ederson in goal, and then it is Walker, Diaz, Laporte. Then, up to you. We will find out, and I'll get the opinions of our guests. We have Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Silva, Grealish, Foden and Haaland. So it is Laporte and Phil Foden that come into the starting 11. Your subs bench is Ortega, Phillips, Ake that drops to the bench, Alvarez, Gomez, Akanji, Mahrez on the bench, Palmer and Lewis. So that is your City starting 11 and your City subs bench for today's game. So, Nedum, I'm just going to look straight at you.
Listen, I've never managed the game in my life, so maybe you should be looking elsewhere for this one in particular. What would you like to see from that?
No, you're going to go because,
Yeah.
Martin says you have to.
Yeah.
Where did you think Bernardo found himself most of the time on Wednesday night? Basically,
somewhere towards the left.
Somewhere towards the left, absolutely right. When it was over on the right-hand side, I thought he did the right thing by tucking in, but the minute that he thought it was going to be headed long, then, obviously down to the right-hand side, I think he tried to move out rather quickly then to try. And considering that that's not his position, overall, I thought he did fine.
So do I. And I think one thing I thought from looking at the game and seeing the details of it, it shows how high his football IQ is, because it's a different position for him, and it's not him playing to his strengths.
Yeah.
But he still had a good relationship with Ake, and he still knew the times to go and when not to go. And that's playing against one of the best wingers in the world, in Bukayo Saka. And,
absolutely.
That's incredible. But I think it shows, in my opinion, throughout that City side, they're good players technically and so on, but their understanding of aspects of the game, which you wouldn't necessarily assume would be, brilliant at times. It really is, because in the end, I say he did a great job going to the Emirates. Yeah. Essentially helping keep one of the best players, I say, in the world very quiet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Martin, do you think it'll be a similar formation for City today with Bernardo playing that kind of left-sided?
I don't see any other alternative, really. Laporte is essentially a centre half, isn't he? Really, and I can't really see much change if Laporte has just come in for Ake. I would have thought this particular game really, and I felt that Ake might have been, in terms of a little bit of balance there, just as you had mentioned it about him helping out Bernardo Silva before. Then I thought that he might retain his place. But listen. You're talking about a manager who's actually won a few competitions in his time. So,
one or two, you could say.
I suppose maybe people might question, arguments with Cancelo, Cancelo, is it? What's the correct pronunciation?
I would say Cancelo, I but I don't think he's going to mind.
Yeah, I think it's, it would be.
I think what's interesting in this game, having seen Nottingham Forest a few times recently, there isn't a big emphasis for them in terms of keeping the ball. So I think even though they're at home, they may take more of a backward step. So when we look at that Bernardo situation,
that's true.
There'll be fewer times when he's actually trapped back there in a defensive position should he have to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it allows City in this moment to get some of their key players in on the field. You've got Bernardo Silva next to a Rodri, next to a Gundogan, next to a Kevin De Bruyne. Those are four fantastic midfield players.
Yeah.
And I think in the way that they will build out, that ends up being a huge strength. And I think Forest, they will go for it at a certain point, but it'll be very different to how we saw Arsenal try and go for it the game before, and the same for probably Villa as well. So I think I always find this, we all talk about Pep's tactics and other managers' tactics and so on. Then I have this moment where I realise I don't know what he wants to see from it. So as a consequence, whatever comes of it, he'll make the decision as to whether he was happy or not, as opposed to my own sort of feelings about what it looks like and something I'm unfamiliar with. And I think that does make a difference in my eyes.
Now, one of the big players this season, or certainly since the World Cup, has been Jack Grealish, Martin. To me, he's really cementing himself as one of the first names on the team sheet. And obviously, he had that goal against Arsenal midweek, which I loved his celebration. I love his passion. Do you think he's becoming one of the main men now at City?
I think is he becoming one of the main men? If, for instance, if there was a cup final, let's say Champions League final, and it was next week, would he start in the team? I'm not wildly sure myself. It's only a thought from a distance. Remember, I'm viewing this from a distance. I'm not, but he's definitely improving. No question about that. The goal will help him, and I just think that I think he's coming on. I think he's feeling more comfortable now, because it is interesting. He was a big hero at Aston Villa, really big star there, first in the team sheet every single week, regardless, and crowd loved him as well too. Okay, so you're moving for 100 million. People say, players say that that wasn't their concern about a fee. That's not actually true, because if I can go right back to my time, Trevor Francis, who ended up being a really good player for Manchester City. But Trevor Francis became the first £1 million player when he moved from Birmingham to Nottingham Forest. And Trevor will tell you, even to this day, that up until for the first couple of months of his time, I think that he really was worried about whether he was worth this type of money. Eventually scores in the European Cup final, so everything is hunky-dory. But really, I think I could draw some sort of parallel there with Jack Grealish. £100 million is a lot of money, a lot of money. You have to justify it. It's all right, people saying, that it'll not worry too much. You'll not worry too much about it. Jack has got if I can call it, he's got an outward sign of confidence, but down or behind all of that there, I think there's just a genuine worry about whether you're up to this. And Manchester City are winning. So this is the point. He's coming to a side that's winning all the time. So I think all of those things would have gone through his head. Right. Have you asked me, is this a long-winded answer by saying, is he improving? Absolutely. And I think he's feeling more confident now. And when he's getting a run of games as well too, For instance, the other night when they were looking to change, Mahrez has come off and Grealish stays in the field. And again, from a distance, I thought Mahrez was actually still doing okay in the game. And if I'd been the manager, I might have been tempted to keep Mahrez on the pitch. But there we go.
Mm-hmm. We talked about Mahrez on our FPL show yesterday in terms of, are we going to start to see the rotation with the Champions League coming up? Mm-hmm. We predicted that we probably would, and we're right. I was kind of expecting him to perhaps be rested today ahead of the Champions League game. I always like to refer to him as Mr. Champions League. Mm-hmm. In terms of Grealish, not only did he get the goal, but obviously he was instrumental in Kevin De Bruyne's goal with the pressure that he was putting on Tomiyasu. Yeah. How much do you like to see him getting involved sort of all over the pitch?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think sometimes within football you can just get not necessarily bogged down, but solely focus on did they score, did they assist. Mm-hmm. But in this moment here, if he doesn't go and chase down Tomiyasu, then the quality of ball from Tomiyasu back to the goalkeeper will be better. So I think that makes a difference, and I think with Kevin De Bruyne as well chasing it down, that's it, they pressure together. There's not one individual, and because Jack went, maybe that's why Kevin went, that's why other people behind them came up the field as well. And I think it's that sense of team that makes such a big difference. Never giving up. And I think what I like about Jack the most is when, obviously he's a good player, but when he speaks about his situation at City, he's usually very, very open and very honest, and there's a sense of humility that exists within it. Because as Martin said, he came to City, there's a £100 million price tag, and usually a player that comes for that much will usually arrive in a place and be the best player. All of a sudden, in the moment when he first arrives, he might not even be in the top 5, top 10, because some of the players around you are some of the best in the world, and you can have aspirations to be there, but in that moment you're not there. But I think he's getting better week in, week out. And I feel like he's really connecting with the City fans now. There are a lot of City fans who are defending him when other people are being critical. And the way he celebrated that goal against Arsenal, he knew himself what it meant to score that, same way that the fans did. And you could see, he's pumped, he's looking at the crowd, they're shouting, everyone's shouting at each other. One of those crazy moments within football where nobody's saying a word, but everyone's very much involved in the moment. I think he's doing really, really well, getting better, and you can see he's confident and fits in the side.
As fans, we love to see the passion players have when they score, and we love to see what it means to them. So I completely agree. Another player that loves to celebrate, and he celebrates a lot, Martin, because he scores a lot, is Erling Haaland. Of course, scoring against Arsenal, breaking a mini goal drought, if we dare call it that, not scoring for a whole 4 games, Martin. How much do you rate him?
He is just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic player. So strong. You just said there that a mini goal drought. It reminds me of the time I managed Henrik Larsson up in Scotland for Celtic, and Henrik was a goal-scoring machine, absolutely. And I once said to my assistant manager, John Robertson, John, Henrik hasn't scored yet, and he said to me, "Don't worry, Martin." He said, "We'll soon be kicking off." So what I'm saying is that you talk about a mini goal drought for Haaland, you just know. What has he? Has he got 30-odd goals this season?
He's 26 in the Premier League.
26 in the Premier League.
The most Sergio Aguero ever scored in a season.
Well, it's fantastic. Really, really fantastic. And, somebody said to me when away at the beginning of the season when, do you know what, he might struggle there. I don't want, because you never heard this conversation, so you only get my word for it. I thought, struggle, you must be kidding. And even when early on, did he not go a couple of 90 minutes without getting it?
I think it was the Community Shield.
Yes.
First game of the season where Darwin Núñez scored and he didn't. It's like, he's going to be a failure.
A failure. A failure, honestly. He's absolutely terrific. And in many aspects, I'm not saying that Manchester City are going to change their style of play just for one player, but he gives them so many options in many aspects. Yeah. You can actually knock the ball over the top, which Manchester City have never been really used to and haven't been doing for quite some years. You can do that. And he can still come short and he can join in. So this idea that he's just over the top, I don't see it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, his goal is just brilliant. And it's so simple. It's played, it's knocked back, it's terrific. Brilliant pullback. But even so, he controls it left foot and immediately it's off his foot into the right.
He's done so well that we forget that he's 22.
It's absolutely terrific.
If it was another 22-year-old that was on the come up somewhere, we'd talk about them slightly differently, talking about their future and so on. But because he's so good, we spend a lot of time talking about the now. In 5, 6, 7 years' time, just picture how good he could be once he understands the game. Because I think it was a couple of weeks ago, there was a comparison from some between himself and Harry Kane. Haaland's played over 300 games less than Harry Kane. Do you not think after those 300 games we might be seeing a slightly more refined player than we see right now?
Yeah, that's true. But listen, it is... you know what? Let me start again. You sense from him that he feels confident that he will get a goal. He will contribute in the game in some aspect.
100%.
Honestly.
And he feels like he looks as well like he enjoys football.
Absolutely.
Yes, and he enjoys scoring, which is the key.
Oh, listen, we all do.
Key,
listen, we all do, but we don't tend to score too many. Some of us, anyway.
Well, talk for yourself. Midfielder, like 60 odd, All
right, okay. Yeah, I understand.
But that was 100 years ago.
It still counts.
Still counts. Yeah. If you would like to ask our guests any questions, I'm sure you will have absolutely loads today. You can ask them on our WhatsApp number. It's on your screen now. Get them in. I'll get through as many as I can. We got so many on Wednesday night for Colo and, of course, Martin's first show as well. So get them coming in and I will get through as many as I possibly can. And don't forget, now is the perfect chance if you haven't downloaded the Manchester City app yet. I have been telling you all season, it is the best place to get your commentary. It will be the wonderful Alistair Mann who will talk you through today's game against Forest, a 3 p.m. kickoff. Let's have a look now at that Forest starting 11 for today's game. And in goal, it is Navas, Worrell, Shelvey, Colback, Gibbs-White, Johnson, Freuler, Aurier, Danilo, Lodi and Felipe. That is your Forest starting 11 for today's game. And I just love seeing Navas's name on that team sheet. I'm not quite over that signing yet. So that is your Forest starting 11 for today's game. Martin, when you look at that Forest team today, what is your instant impression? The players that I knew at the football club when I was there, and that's a couple of years ago, was a very, very young Johnson. You could sense we used to bring him up to the first team to join us with training and that there. And what was he? He was about 15 and a half or 16 at that time. You knew that he had definitely had ability. And Jack Colback was also there when I was at the football club. So. The rest of the players, Worrell was at the football club but was out on loan at Rangers up in Scotland at the time, so I never got to know him. And the rest of the players that we all know lots about, Aurier, players like this here. I think I agree with you in the sense that they set up initially not to get beaten in games. They do, even at home, they sit back, they defend a little bit, which probably will not worry Manchester City too much, where they'll have plenty of possession of the ball. Are they capable of scoring a lot of goals? Nottingham Forest? I don't think so. I don't think they are. Is their ambition just to stay in the league this particular season? Obviously, that's it, And I'm quite sure
I know it's an old cliched phrase, but I'm sure that they will feel that this is a game that is one that they can, if there's such a word as enjoy, they might try and enjoy the game in that sense. The crowd are great. The crowd are right up with them. There are loads of season tickets. They fill the ground every single home game. So from that viewpoint, there's a really good atmosphere about the football club now as well too. Obviously, because they're back in the big league. But overall, are they capable of beating Manchester City if Manchester City show the same type of form as they've shown for the last 6 years?
Might say 10. Yeah.
You know, so it'll be a tough task for Forest today.
How would you, from a City perspective, look to try and break down the Forest side, which is going to have a lot of people, maybe in a mid to low block, and really be condensed? Like, what's the key to sort of breaking down a team that sets up like that? Would you say?
Well, you actually probably know the answer anyway, so you're just asking me the question.
I don't. I'm brand new to
it. Is where I feel about Manchester City, and have done for a long time now. They've never needed a really big centre forward, somebody who's going to head the ball into the net, and hence this fella arriving now who will help them in many aspects. They isolate players, obviously, try and get 3v2s, 2v1s, sliding players in, so using width, but not width to be going wide with that player. Width to be somebody coming inside, playing a little 1-2 and in. And once you're in, if you've got a defence that are actually, in a straight line, once you've beaten them, you're in, and you're whipping balls across the penalty area. And they talk about, where Sterling scored a lot of goals coming in, just almost like tap-ins. They're not necessarily that, but that's the way they've played. It's unbelievably simple, and yet you need players to be able to do it.
100%.
You need the players. Manchester City have the players to be able to do it. And I'm not saying this because I'm in this programme. Where I felt about Manchester City is that lots of teams now in this league have a little bit of possession. If you want to count up stats, which would drive me insane sometimes, because you can have 300 passes and 250 could be made between the two centre backs at the end of the day.
Good passes. You know what I mean?
Good 2-yard passes. Yeah. So, but when Manchester City have possession, and even when they go backwards, even when it comes back, you feel as if they're back for a purpose, because they're going to come again. They're going to come at you. Honestly, that's when I feel a lot of teams, a lot of big sides here in this league have a little bit of possession. I think, it's gone back. It's gone backwards, and where they could have looked forward. Manchester City players do look forward when it's on. When it's not on, they go back with a purpose of coming down the other side. I feel that about them all the time, that there is a purpose in their game, which I don't think happens with all the sides. And when you have a purpose like that, and you've got players to be able to deal with it, like De Bruyne is phenomenal footballer, really phenomenal. And when you have players like that be able to do with it, then honestly, you feel as if you'll win. You'll win a lot of football matches. You will win. And then do you win enough matches to go and win a league? Do you win enough matches to go and win a cup? So those are the things, I think. Just my view.
Love that, Martin. I love it. And what I love seeing as well is I can see Nedum watching you, learning so much. I love your face.
It's honestly. I mean, we would say this. You think it's incredibly simple. Well, if it was that simple, everybody would be doing it. It's you have to be able to do it, deal with it. You can't, and that's it. And I don't. Yeah. Okay. It's just my thought.
And we love it. Very, very welcome. I want to get your thoughts now, both your thoughts about the Manchester City defence. So it's chopped and changed a lot this season due to injuries, due to situations. But we've seen in recent games, Ruben Diaz is back, Nedum. 45 minutes against Villa, and he went off. But then, of course, he had the full 90 minutes against Arsenal on Wednesday. Immediately, we start seeing some of his classic Ruben Diaz-style blocks and tackles, and my favourite is the celebrating he does. There you go. You see him punch in the air. How important is it for us that he's back now?
Yeah, it's hugely important. I think he'd been on the bench a few times in the build-up to the Villa game and this second game here. And you sort of miss him. This is a former Premier League player of the season. But in fairness to City, I think Akanji and Ake have been two of the best players they've had all season as well. So it's almost like an embarrassment of riches. You have two players playing incredibly well. But I know tons of people are then hoping that Diaz and Laporte get a chance to play as well. I think the depth that they have is amazing, but with Ruben, that's it. And I think even in that highlight there's more to it than just him, the individual, because if you notice, Kyle Walker never went to engage with Xhaka because he knew Ruben Diaz was coming alongside him. So he goes and deals with the next thing because Ruben Diaz can be trusted to deal with that first thing. I think when there's not that level of communication, understanding, it goes a long way in terms of making the team worse. But he's brilliant. He reads the game so well. You don't necessarily want to see him be last ditch, but in a moment where it has to be, he's exceptional at it. He's an organiser. He's driving the intent within the game itself. And, as I say, it's an embarrassment of riches because for City, every time somebody was out, because I remember the derby when City won 6-3, Diaz and Laporte were on the bench. So instead, they went with a Swiss international and a Dutch international. It's a great spot to be in when you know that the players who are out there are great, but the ones who were on the bench, you've seen them be amazing. And I think to see him come back, it's a big sort of like safety blanket for lots of fans. He plays well, probably 9 times out of 10. And on a bad day, he's still very good anyway. So it's great to see him out there. You know he's going to command the team. He's one of the captains of the football club. He's, I could talk about it forever, but I'd just be saying the same things. He's amazing.
No, you're right, because I'm so happy that Diaz is back, but that's not because I had any issue with Akanji or Ake, who have had phenomenal seasons. And in that Arsenal game, Ake himself makes a wonderful block that I want to have another look at. He's on the floor, but he's still going. He's still going. He's still going. I love this one. And for the penalty that in my opinion, shouldn't have been, he makes a great goal line clearance as well. It's here. He's on the floor. He's still going, Martin.
Ake.
Yeah, I love that.
I've been quite impressed by him.
Yeah.
I have been. And I have to say this. I wasn't wildly sure when he signed in the first place. I didn't think that he had the pace to do it. I really thought that he would struggle a little bit in that sense, and it was going to be hard for him to gain a regular spot. I could imagine when you're changing the team over, you're fighting for loads of things, and you think you have to give some of your main players a bit of respite. He would come in and sit and do a job, but he's actually played more often. He's played more often than I thought he would do, and that's probably because he's doing well.
He's doing very well.
He's doing well. Better, honestly, better than I thought. I really thought at the time. Was it Bournemouth to Chelsea and then Chelsea to Man? I must admit, I was concerned.
Yeah. But, somehow they got recruitment right. And I think, that's a joke, by the way. But in terms of him playing, availability is sometimes one of the best abilities, because there was a spell where, say, Kyle Walker was out, so someone would have to play right back. And then in the midfield, Laporte was out start of the season. So a left-footed centre-back then is key. So you're in there and you're playing well. That's fantastic for him. This led to him going to the World Cup and starting alongside Van Dijk's and other people in that setup. He's done exceptionally well. And I think for me, what I like about City, especially under Pep Guardiola, is the players that come. Like, this is a great team, but the players themselves are all getting better. Ake's improved from what he was when he first came.
Correct.
All the other players have as well. And some of that's going to be down to the individual, some of that due to the infrastructure, some of that's due to the coaching. But he's gotten so much better. And I say this as a guy who was playing in the World Cup alongside other people who we call great defenders. So surely he falls into the rank of potentially being significant enough to to be able to play at the highest level.
I apologise there, Nedum. You might see my face drop. Sorry.
She's trying to cut us off. Yeah, she's trying to cut us off, Martin. This is what she's doing.
Arsenal have just got a winner in the last couple of minutes of their game against Villa. So I got that, and then my face dropped, and I realised Nedum's going to think my face has dropped because of what he's saying.
No, that too, though.
It wasn't that. There's a couple of minutes left to go in that game. I will let you know when it is full time, but it is 3-2 to Arsenal now. Another man that we were mentioning there in City's defence, and we can see that the players coming out now to the City ground to warm up, is of course Manuel Akanji. What a phenomenal season, a debut season he is having for us. I'm not sure any of us expected him to do what he's done this season. Well, we spoke to him a little bit earlier on this week, and here's his thoughts ahead of today's game.
They got a lot of new players in the summer, and also the results been showing over the last couple of games. They're doing well. It's an away game. It's not easy. That's really one thing I learned in the Premier League. There's no easy games here. You can lose to every team if you don't bring your best, and that's why we got to keep staying focused and hopefully continue this winning streak.
Is every week a new adventure for you, going to a new ground? Forest, of course, recently just arrived in the Premier League.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of stadiums I haven't played in. Only in the Champions League against a couple of teams, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. We'll see how the stadium is there. It's probably going to be a good atmosphere, and yeah, the most important thing is to get 3 points out of this game.
Manuel Akanji speaking a little bit earlier this week about tonight's game. Just what a phenomenal buy he's been. I mean, when he came in, I think it was kind of all unexpected for us, and it's such a bargain price. But wow, he's hit the ground running, hasn't he, Nedum?
Yeah, he sure has. He's been fantastic from the very first game that he played. He's even had times where he's had to play it right back as well, but he's always, done the best that he can for the team. And again, we mention him, we talk about him because we don't really know him, but he'd been playing for Dortmund for many years. He's playing for Dortmund in the Champions League. He's playing for Switzerland at European Championships and World Cups. He's clearly not a bad player. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that he came to the club was a necessity in that moment because of the injuries that the club had. Yeah. But then to have him here now, to be playing as well as he's done, for him to have improved the same way all the other players have, as I said before, it almost feels like an embarrassment of riches that you can pick, say, Laporte, you can pick Diaz as a starting two, and then have Akanji and Ake on the bench. That's a real privileged position to be in, and he's been fantastic. He's bought into what it is to be a member of the football team. He understands the goals of the club, and he's committed, he's passionate, people you can get behind. I like the fact that they bring in lots of really talented players, but they all seem really humble as well. They're all happy to play for the football club, and it means you can get behind them, because when he's out there, he's going to represent you to the best of his abilities, and I love that.
Yeah, we bought him and he came straight into the team, Martin, and hit the ground running. How difficult is that as a player, do you think, to move from another country to a new league, to come straight into the team? I think his wife had a baby as well in his first week when he was here, and to just hit the ground running. Again,
it's great credit to him because he's not coming into a struggling team. He's coming into a side full of world-class players, and this is the whole point. And then you have to try and make a mark. And I think these things are really important in the dressing room as well, too. Players sitting down, having a little look around, looking at the players that they're just almost facing him, looking at the challenges they have to do, trying to make a mark. And you say, I need to get up and running. I need to be up and running very, very quickly here. And great credit that that's the case with him. And he has made a mark, so at least, and he will have now that respect in the dressing room, which I think becomes unbelievably important, particularly when you're talking about a group of quality players.
Yeah. Absolutely, thank you. Just a reminder as well, the best way to follow everything Manchester City is on our app. I absolutely love it when I get a little notification. I'm straight on it wondering what's going on. And there's always some incredible content on there. Just this week alone, you can see highlights from the Arsenal game. You can also see Martin O'Neill picking his Manchester City Nightmare 11. I love that. And also there's a really in-depth long read about Jack Grealish and his rise to the top of the game. So get the Manchester City app downloaded. But next up, we have our latest instalment of Who the Foot.
Hello and welcome to Who the Foot. My name is FG and today I am joined by Manchester City goalkeeper Stefan Ortega and Cole Palmer. Stefan, let's hear your buzzer sound.
I would say it's Mac.
Cole, have you got a buzzer sound for us?
Meh.
Right, ready to get into it, guys? You can see the first foot item on the screen. You can see 80 pace, the 90 dribbling.
Meh.
Okay, let's go, Cole.
Riyad.
The answer is Riyad Mahrez. Cole, you take the first round. You play a lot of FIFA.
Because he's got a good dribbling, but he's not as fast. So.
A lot of yeah. Right, okay, round number 2.
Mac.
Okay, let's go, Stefan.
I know who it is. I would say it's Ruben.
Is it? Cole is very... Okay, Cole, it's your go. It's not Ruben, Stefan.
Oh.
We heard the buzzer.
Stones.
The answer is John Stones. He's been done a little bit dirty.
I know it's a
with
bit
old.
He's much faster.
He's passing as well, but yeah, you heard it from the pros themselves. Let's go on to the third player.
Mac.
Okay, let's go, Stefan.
I would say Jack.
I can't remember, it's not Jack Grealish. The next clue is he's 85 rated.
Matt.
Cole.
Phil.
It is Phil.
Yeah, only one option.
It is Phil. You know what? You were actually close there, Stefan, by the way, because I said Jack as well.
I thought it was, yeah.
That was, of course, Stefan Ortega and Cole Palmer with our FG with this week's Who the Foot. Now, this afternoon, we're also going to turn our attention to there's a wonderful, wonderful event currently taking place in Abu Dhabi. I'm talking about the City Abu Dhabi Cup. It's taking place today and tomorrow, and it is a massive football tournament for boys and girls, ranging from under 8s all the way up to under 14s. There is 128 teams taking part across the 2 days, and they're also going to be enjoying a big screening of today's game against Forest. We sent presenter Kyle Walker out to Abu Dhabi with us to speak to some fans and let us know more about the competition.
I am here in Abu Dhabi for the Manchester City Abu Dhabi Cup 2023. Now, this is the first time we've had this tournament in 4 years, so I'm making the most of the sunshine, and so are all of our incredible young players, as you can see behind me, that have taken to the football pitch already. 128 teams have travelled right here to Abu Dhabi from the UK. Yes, our under-10s Manchester City Academy, they're right here. We've got teams from UAE, we've got teams from Oman, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Turkmenistan as well. Plenty of different countries have travelled right here to take part in the tournament, all with the hope of coming to Manchester. Yes, you heard it here right. One of our teams will be drawn tomorrow at their final live, and they'll win a training camp at the CFA to see all the facilities and maybe even to pop into the studio to see you guys as well. Now, let's talk to two of our young footballers that have just come off a 6-0 victory in their first game. Guys, let's chat to both of you. Omar, Jad, I'll start with you first on this one, all right? You've got a big smile on your face. Are you enjoying the tournament so far?
Very good.
I love the enthusiasm right there. What is it about this tournament that you've enjoyed?
Getting a first victory, which is 6-0.
I love that. The confidence, the smile right there. Omar, you played in that first game. Tough opponents, but how good is it being here, being out in the sunshine and just seeing everyone enjoying themselves and playing football at the same time?
Yeah, it's been great, and also I bagged my first goal since some time. It's I'm CDM, so yeah. So I really love playing with my teammates and enjoying it.
Now, I can see that you guys have enjoyed yourselves. There is a competitive element to it, but it feels like everyone's smiling, everyone's having lots and lots of fun. How is it playing against all the different footballers from the different countries? You said your next game, it could be a team against that have come all the way from Uganda.
Yeah, it might be tough because it's Juventus Oman and a team from Uganda. And when we watched the game, it was 5-5.
Wow, all right, so the competition is definitely high right here, but it's nice for you to mix and it's nice for you to actually see and talk and play against all these different footballers. What has been your favourite thing of the day so far? Because it's not just the football, we've got plenty of activations as well.
So Jad, he won a prize. In the football prizes, he won a mug. It's super funny. I hope he gives it to me. No, I don't.
Well, we'll see if he does right there. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I know you're in the studio, guys. I know you're cold. I'm just going to rub it in a little bit more. It's not just the football we've got on. We have got a live screening of Manchester City against Nottingham Forest this evening as well. Although, T-shirts required in this weather. I'll throw it back to you guys in the studio. Turn the heating up. We don't need it here.
Thanks so much, Kyle. And that is the City Abu Dhabi Cup currently taking place out in Abu Dhabi. Have a wonderful weekend to everybody that is taking part there. Now, in the studio here, we are, of course, joined by Martin O'Neill making his Matchday live debut. Martin, it's such a pleasure for us to have you. We'd love to have a chat with you now about you, about your career, about all of the incredible things that you have achieved. I mean, as a player, the list is ridiculous. So, obviously, First Division League title, 2 European Cups, 1 European Super Cup, 2 League Cups, all while you were at Forest, of course, in the golden era. You, as a manager, you had some cracking games against City as well. But if we started your time as a player, playing under Brian Clough, just give us an idea of what that era was like.
Well, you're too young to remember Brian Clough, you know. It's funny that, because there are people of a certain vintage now that do remember him greatly. Wonderful manager, really wonderful, so charismatic, it's untrue. People say, how would he fare now in the modern game, today's game, as it's called. I don't think he would have a problem with it. I think that he could cope because he was such a genius as a football manager. That's the very first game he ever was in charge. That's him. We've just beaten Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Cup replay. He's put me straight into the side, my word. And that was a long time ago. Anyway, he came to the football club in 1975 and obviously changed the face of the club. Not immediately, believe it or not. He had an immediate impact. We won our opening game, then we won another game at Fulham. Then he didn't win another match for 16 games. I know it sounds crazy, but Brian Clough was unsackable at that time, really. And things really started to come together when about 16 months after he had joined, his partner, Peter Taylor, came. Peter arrived, the two of them together, and they were a force, an absolute force. We got immediate promotion into the big league, which would be the Premier League now, win that first time of asking, and then following up with European Cups. I can't say that every single moment was a glorious moment for me working under him. Sometimes we had a bit of a difference of opinion on my ability, And I used to think that I was phenomenal, and he didn't necessarily agree with that. And I think one day I'll tell a joke. He actually said to me at half-time, "Hey, son, you and I are going to fall out." He said, "Because you haven't had a kick." He said, "In fact, the linesman's having a better game than you, And he said, "And if you don't buck up in the second half," he said, "I might replace you with the linesman, So
how did you take that?
I didn't take it. You know what? I sometimes spoke out of turn.
Yeah.
I should have just kept it, And in those days, even bad managers had the sort of respect in the dressing room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And at the end, but he, you just don't speak back. One, he's too clever for you.
Yeah.
For a start. Two, he would have an immediate answer for you. And three, it only annoyed him.
So was this like 23, 24 at the time? Is that
I was 21.
So was that something that you learned to grow out of as you got older?
No, unfortunately, I never did.
So then how did this affect you as a manager then? When you then find the little version of you that now exists?
Absolutely. That's why I don't like them. That's exactly right. Yes. Couldn't like them.
Okay.
No doubt.
And how did you, could you have managed yourself?
Oh, I would have, that's very good. I haven't really thought about that. Yes. Yes, I would have. I would have been able to. I'll tell you what. I would have said to him, "Hey, son, just sit down there, be quiet, and you don't know enough.
Okay.
You're arrogant with nothing to be arrogant about."
And then the little version of you would take that well, yeah?
I wouldn't take it well.
But it's what you needed.
But the managerial version would win.
This is true. It's a good point. It's a good point, well made. It's a good point, well
But of course, within your time at Nottingham Forest, the arrogance got well and truly backed up by trophies, because you won not one but 2 European Cups. I mean, that Forest team dominated Europe. Was there a sense that it didn't matter who you played? Was there a sense that was there just that ultimate confidence, we're going to win? Did you have any fear? Yeah,
eventually it became that way. Yeah, absolutely did not have any fear. Initially, our very first game ever in the European Cup, as it was called then, was actually against Liverpool, who were massively big. They had just won the European Cup the previous year. So, and we were looking for a trip to Italy, or we're looking for a trip to Spain. And then suddenly we're backed up against Liverpool. When we knocked them out over the 2 legs, I think there was a confidence grew within the side. Then we started and we'd won the league the previous year, so we were kind of up and running. But the European ventures were really different style of football, different, and learning all the time from the games. One particular game, we played in the quarter-final of the European Cup against Grasshopper Zurich, where you would have expected us, we should be, as English champions, should be able to steamroller them. No, we didn't. They had a top-class centre-forward who led us a merry dance most of the time. They scored first at the City Ground. We eventually won 4-1, but scored twice in the last 2 minutes to give ourselves a decent advantage going into the second leg. Then they scored a penalty after about 8 or 9 minutes in the game. And after that, they swarmed all over us. Really. So you talk about moments in games. Anyway, we got an equalising goal and took the sting out of the game, and eventually looked as if we've qualified comfortably for the semi-final. It was anything but in those games. So you're learning all the time, and that was from grasshoppers. Then semi-final we played Cologne, who had won the German Bundesliga, and they had full of international players, and those were big games as well too. You know, great games.
Oh, I love the idea that you were just playing champions. I have a real problem with the Champions League, letting in teams that come 5th and 6th in the leagues. But that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. So after that, your playing career did bring you to City. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. For a short period of time, you did come here. Tell us about that.
Right, OK. Well, first of all, you don't have long enough in the programme for me to tell you about. John Bond had been the manager, and John Bond, and in the second part of the season, John Bond of the previous season, John Bond had taken the team to the FA Cup final and lost to Tottenham Hotspur. But I came in then at that time, and John, and I had, I must admit, I don't know, it was, I pulled a calf muscle just before pre-season started, I must admit. And that wasn't the best start in the world. And, you know, overall, there were moments when the side looked really decent, and there were moments when we didn't do. We signed Trevor Francis, who was really good. And there was the makings of a really decent side. Tommy Hutchinson was, despite the fact that he was an ageing man, was still a terrific footballer. Joe Corrigan was in goal. Joe used to have... Joe used to welcome you to the football club, not in the manner of even giving you a cup of tea, but punching you straight in the chest. And we had this. I remember this in the bus. Sorry, I digress for a second. Tommy Hutchinson. We were playing a pre-season game, very very briefly. Pre-season game. Afterwards, we were climbing the bus, and Tommy Hutchinson said, "Oh, Joe, you haven't given Martin your welcoming present yet." And Joe just had this in a nice form, but he just almost like breaking your ribs.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Just a big smash in the chest. I went back about 5 or 6 seats. Anyway, and I thought, well, that's it. But overall, I'd like to have stayed longer at the time. It wasn't working out. I was going to be playing in the World Cup for Northern Ireland. I needed to play some games again, and I went back to Norwich. But in my time at Main Road, it was really interesting, I must admit, even for the 6 months that I was here.
Then you went on later in your career, obviously, to have the phenomenal managerial career that you did at Leicester City, winning League Cups, going to Celtic, obviously, where you just won so much. At Villa, at Sunderland. I specifically remember your Sunderland team were a thorn in our side. Yeah. There was a lot of games where you were managing Sunderland. I mean, there's a particular one, the 1-0 win at home that you had in the last minute. Yeah. And also, I didn't realise, but I recall you were the Sunderland manager when Manchester United came, when we won the league for the first time.
Absolutely, yes. That was G. Little boy G scored the goal down there in the last minute, and your manager at the time, Mancini, he just would go straight up the tunnel, and David Platt had to come back and say and apologise for the manager. Doesn't matter to me, really. At the end of the day, we won that game. I think that we had. Well, first of all, he's offside, which I didn't realise.
Well, if the flag doesn't go up.
And the flag, well done. And secondly, we won that game. We must have had about 15% possession. Yeah. Or something like that. But it was great.
Here you are.
That was early days. Yeah, it was great.
Love that. Thank you. I mean, I just feel like we could sit and just talk to you all day long. And
so, I thought another point you were saying about the day. Yeah, that was really interesting. So if I've got time to tell
please.
Yeah, we were playing Manchester United at the Stadium of Light, and obviously you're playing Queen's Park Rangers. The news was coming through that QPR are leading in the game, and it's very, very late on in proceedings. And our game finished about a minute or two early, and all the Manchester United players are still hanging around the tunnel area just to see what's happening. And then the news comes through that goals have been scored. It was incredible, really incredible. You know, for one, when they were first listening to the news, the odds of Manchester United win it were they were going to do it, and then by the time that the news came through and this big roar goes up, and strangely enough, I think the thing that I think annoyed Sir Alex Ferguson most was the Sunderland crowd really cheered when Manchester City won it, and I don't think he was wildly happy with that. But for a whole season with the two teams for a season to come round to the last minute or two, it was so dramatic. It was incredible.
As a fan, and I think a lot of City fans agree with me, I still love watching the videos of the Sunderland fans celebrating. And
have you seen it? Right.
Oh
okay.
yes,
I've never seen
love
it back since. So
there's some brilliant clips. It pans to the United fans in the away end, and it pans to the Sunderland fans singing. And yes, absolutely love it. Now, something else that we love to do here on Matchday Live is play games with our guests, Martin. Okay. We don't generally warn the guests because we want them to come on the show. But this is a nice and easy one. So do you want to work as a team?
I can attempt to. I know what we're going to do here.
You need
There's
Martin's
a lot of
help.
pressure on you here,
Yes.
Martin.
No,
just so you're aware, there's a lot of pressure.
You need Martin's
on
help, Nedum. So it's a simple higher or lower game, Martin, and it is for appearances of players that you have managed. So it's quite simple. There'll just be 11 players. They're on the screen now. And all we need to do is you guys need to decide between you if that player has a higher or lower number of appearances than the previous player. So, out of interest, Martin, do you know the player that played under you that had the most appearances under you?
That had the most appearances under me. Right, okay. I would say the most appearances under me, Gareth Barry.
No, but is Gareth Barry on? Gareth Barry's on the list, so we'll find out how many.
Tough start for you.
But it's Stili and Petrov, because you had him at Celtic and Villa. He played 29,426 minutes under you, 349 times.
Are you talking about for all clubs?
Yes.
Or not just at Aston Villa?
Yes, no, all clubs.
Sorry, I apologise.
Yes.
Apologise.
Yes,
I might not necessarily have even guessed Stili. At one time, Stili, at Aston Villa, I signed him. He was my first signing. I loved Stili as a player, but he wasn't going on so well at the time. And I said, Stili, I think, I'm not so sure that this is going to work out. And he said, don't you worry, Gaffer, I will pull this round.
And he did.
He did.
And he did. Right, I love that. OK, so the first player on the screen is Emil Heskey, who played 203 times for you.
Yeah.
So Henrik Larsson up next. Did Henrik Larsson play higher or lower? So more or less appearances than 203?
Right, OK. Let's see, my 4 years. I'm going to say higher.
Higher.
Henrik Larsson higher. What's the answer? It's lower, 155.
155, sorry, right, okay. 203, right, okay.
Up next, that's a very young-looking Robbie Savage. That's filtered, that picture, isn't it? That is definitely a filtered picture of Robbie Savage.
How many years did he have at Leicester? How long? Yes.
I was 5 years at Leicester.
Was he there for the full 5?
He was there for 4.
So this should be lower.
So are you talking about lower than?
Yeah, lower than 155 now. Yeah.
Oh no, lower than 155. Hold on, let's see. Yeah, I would say lower. Okay.
Lower, and it is 121. Yeah. Okay. Next up, that man Gareth Barry. You managed him at Aston Villa. Higher or lower?
Lower than
121.
120. Higher.
Higher, it was higher, 127.
Oh, was that all?
Gareth Barry. Close though, yeah.
So you could have picked him more, but
yeah. Next up, that's our Scott Carson. You had him at Villa as well.
That should be lower, sure.
Oh, that's definitely lower.
Definitely lower, significantly lower. That was 36 for Scott Carson. Another one of our former players, Richard Dunn.
Richard Dunn on 36. Richard Dunn would have.
A couple of seasons.
He had just the one season with me. I left after that. So, and he came in. 36. It's really tight.
It is tight as well. I'll tell you.
It's really tight. Really tight. I'll go. That's we got to the League Cup final there for you. Do you know what?
You're thinking higher, aren't you?
38. He didn't miss too many. I'll tell you what, I'll go higher.
Higher. It was higher.
Yes, that's a great shout.
You must have played pretty much every game for you that season.
He's only played pretty much every game for everyone.
Yeah. And so does this guy, James Milner. Higher or lower?
Who? James Milner?
Yeah.
By about 7 million miles higher.
James Milner, 92 appearances at Villa.
Yeah.
And then that is, next up, that is Shay Given.
Shay Given. All right, okay. Well, that's absolutely no doubt at all about it. Shay Given, the only time I ever had Shay Given was for international matches, so that would be lower.
Lower, 9. 9 international matches. Then that is Wayne Bridge. You had him at Sunderland.
Wayne, right, okay, 9. Wayne came in for a bit of a loan. That's interesting.
They're quite good at this. They've teed up some nice ones here.
What?
It's making you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it's saying.
It's got to be more than 9, surely.
Do you know what?
It's a long way north for less than 9.
I know, but Wayne did.
Oh.
Let me. 9.
Do you
know what? Yeah,
you want to go higher.
Yeah, we'll go higher. We'll go higher.
Of your heart suggests
it was higher, but it was just higher. It was
See,
10.
we knew it was higher. We knew it was higher. Of course we did. Of course we did. It's easy. It's easy.
Forced me into it.
It's easy.
Just 2 left now.
Just, it was 10. That's why I was thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Next up is Craig Bellamy. Of course, you had him at Celtic.
Oh, good Lord, Bellamy. Right.
We're really getting you thinking here, Martin.
More than 10. Absolutely, more than 10.
12, just more.
Yeah.
And then the last one, Eyal Berkovic. How do I not remember him going to Celtic? Eyal Berkovic.
12. What is the? If you're including substitutes and stuff like this here, but coming up. You know what? I'll take a chance. I'll go lower.
It was lower. Very good.
Wow.
It was 4.
Yeah.
Obviously, we started off on the wrong foot by getting the first one wrong. But as soon as you figured out the game, it's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Are you taking that as your victory, Nathan?
No. It's not about me. It's not about me.
Man management.
It's not about me. It's not about me.
Martin, thank you so much
it's a pleasure. Once I got
humouring us with that.
Hang and realised that, it wasn't. I thought when you said Aston Villa, I didn't mean the whole.
Yes, we're in. And we can see the players, they're warming up there just behind us. We are around about 10 minutes now. 3 o'clock kickoff today. 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff, everyone. Isn't it glorious? We got so many WhatsApp questions from you all. Wow, thank you so much. I'm not going to have time to do them all. Half time, I promise, I will whiz through as many of your questions because I love your questions. You ask really brilliant, innovative things, so I'll get through them at half time. So we've got just a couple more minutes, gents, so I'd love to get your kind of final thoughts. Nedum, firstly, game today, Arsenal have won. How important is it that City get the victory?
I think it's always important. They are chasing to try and get to the top, and I think for me personally, it's a boost if Arsenal don't win, but it's almost an expectation that they will. You still have to handle your own business itself, because if Arsenal drew, would you say, let's take a draw at Forest? Probably not. I think the desire to win is there. They've chased before, they've done it before. So I think, they don't get the high of seeing that Arsenal have dropped points, but they've got a game against Forest. And as you mentioned before, I think it's 7 games unbeaten at home for Forest. I don't think it'll be the most glamorous of games. They have to be clinical. They have to make sure they get the mentality right, because otherwise it could be a real downer after the high that was the win against Arsenal away.
Yeah, absolutely, and like you said already, Martin, about Forest, but they are on a really good run at the minute, especially at home. What sort of game are you expecting today?
Again, I wouldn't disagree with my man manager here beside me. I just talking about Manchester City for a second. You mentioned there that they definitely have to win the game, absolutely, and I'm sure that would have been in their thinking anyway, as it's always in their thinking. But there'll just be a bit of disappointment here, just listening in and thinking, well, wonder at 2-1. I've come in the door myself here and I asked, was the score still 2-1? So and it was at that stage. Then they get an equaliser, then they go on to win the game. So. Listen, Manchester City have overcome all of those things, but in normal circumstances, if you're a manager and you're chasing, and you've just heard a result there like that, there will be a bit of disappointment. But the only thing, a good thing about it is this year it works in mysterious ways. It'll G the players up as well too, as much as anything else. And I think they don't need much G'ing. They haven't. They're
not a bad side.
They're not a bad side. They're capable of opening up teams,
Interesting in that game as well, it ended up being an Emi Martinez own goal for the 3rd, and then Arsenal actually ended up getting a 4th goal because Martinez goes down
Because
from a
down the field,
corner,
does he? Yeah,
and Arsenal, and there's no keeper, and Arsenal go up the other end and get a fourth. So they've come back. So we are back in the place where we need to win again, Nedum. We've heard a lot this week. Pep talked about it in his press conference about the need to get momentum, about the need to win consecutive games and to still be in this position with 8 or 9 games to go.
Yeah.
Is this now? Are we on a run? Are we going to start seeing a City second half 6, 7, 8, 9 wins in a row?
You never know. I think they're very much in a position where they can do it. I think the significance of the last 2 wins, the Villa win and the Arsenal win away from home. You know, if you want confidence, well, you've just beaten the side who've been ahead of you for the season so far. And the manner of it, especially in that second half, it was a great performance. So I think it definitely can set them up. But they've got to make sure that they do the right things week in, week out, regardless of the opposition. I think sometimes if you get caught looking ahead or you change your focus, I think you'll probably struggle with that. But we've seen year in, year out now for City, they're more than capable of winning 5 to 10 games in a row. And that's such a nice position to be in. And as they look around, most of the players are healthy now. They can see, like, Bernardo Silva's going to look around and is going to see Kevin De Bruyne, see Rodri, see Gundogan, see Phil Foden, see Haaland. If you can't get confidence from seeing those sorts of great players around who can both have the ability and the mentality to handle most moments, then, you know, what chance have you got? But I think City will do it today, and that'll make 3 wins in a row, which is definitely a good start, is it not?
Yes, love that. Thank you. Can I get a score prediction from you both?
I cannot give you score predictions, I'm afraid.
Why?
But I'll say 3-1 to
The third 3-1 in a row? Yes.
Listen, as long as you keep scoring 3 and not conceding as many, then I can live with that.
Martin, what are you thinking?
I would go 2-0.
2-0, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that, yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Martin, thank you so much. It's been
a pleasure.
so enjoyable. You're going to be with us at half-time and full-time as well. And Nedum, thank you as always. What are you thinking about your FPL team? Got Arsenal players in there?
Don't worry about that. We're all good. We're all good.
Yeah, I'm trying not to think about mine. Took Martinelli out, he scored the 4th. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for Matchday Live today. As you can see, the players are coming out at the City ground. Oh, that's a nice top, isn't it?
Oh, here we go.
Hey, that's a new one, I like that. I'm going to need to get myself that one. Stick on the Manchester City app for your commentary. Wonderful, wonderful commentary from the incredible Alistair Mann. And we will all be back at half-time talking about the first 45 minutes. Enjoy the game.
Well, they may have hit the top on Wednesday, but the Blues know this title race will go to the final hurdle. And they come into this game at Nottingham Forest, back in second once again, following Arsenal's earlier win at Aston Villa. City have been used to these kind of dashes to the Premier League finishing line and have been battle-hardened by recent tussles with Liverpool. Experiences which have made them all too aware that nothing is ever won in February and that perfection may well be required all the way to May to earn them a 3rd successive title. Well, after the euphoria generated by victory at Arsenal, they now face an opponent for whom points are just as precious as Nottingham Forest do what they can to keep themselves in the division. Well, their squad is one of the biggest in Europe, and today there are no fewer than 5 changes to the side, which lost at Fulham a week ago. In come Worrell, Shelvey, Colback, Danilo and Felipe, a vastly experienced and hugely talented quintet, ably demonstrating the quality that exists within their ranks. Just 1 defeat in their last 6 league games tell you that they do have renewed belief to match all their quality. Well, City's breathtaking win at Arsenal has quickly had to be consigned to history, as just 3 days on they're back in action again. There are 2 alterations as Aymeric Laporte replaces Nathan Ake and Phil Foden starts for the first time since the Manchester derby. Bernardo Silva is again deployed in that creative left-back come left midfield role in which he excelled at the Emirates. City's 3 scorers, Grealish, De Bruyne and Haaland, are intact. The Norwegian now on 32 for the season, needing just 1 more to match Sergio Aguero's best ever season haul as a Blue. And there are still more than 3 months left to play. Well, this will certainly not be a formality. The Blues will have to work for the right to overcome a Forest team who have been excellent in recent weeks, and indeed particularly here at home at the City ground. They come into this game unbeaten in 7 in the Premier League at the City ground. 4 wins and 3 draws. They've not been defeated here since September. Well, you would anticipate a fantastic crowd, a wonderful atmosphere. It's long since been a sellout, and there is every reason to feel that this could be a pulsating match. Arsenal played earlier today, trailed twice at Villa Park, came back both times and ultimately in stoppage time ended 4-2 victors. I don't think for a moment that anybody within the City ranks expecting anything other than an Arsenal win today. Well, ahead of kick-off, we're just going to pause for a moment's reflection. An immaculate period of silence to reflect on the terrible news that former Premier League player Christian Atsu was found to be one of the many victims of the terrible earthquake in Turkey. Well, both sets of players are now locked in a huddle just near the halfway line. City started the huddle, I think, for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember them having done it before, but now it is a feature pre-match to show the togetherness, the collective responsibility that they all feel. And there is a genuine feeling of togetherness that was so apparent in beating Arsenal on Wednesday night. Players taking the knee, their message: no place for discrimination. Recent title races with Liverpool have required near perfection. It seems that this season may be little different. Only a victory today will